for a man who is anti-austerity, anti-tithing, pro-public services, pro-trade unions, pro-workers' rights. We won that election last year and we'll win it again this year. Please give a big Glasgow warm welcome to the future Prime Minister and leader of the Corbyn.
Yes, I agree. Thanks very much for that introduction, because of all the events we did last year all over the country, the leadership campaign, there was 100 events altogether. I remember them all, of course, but that amazing night in the market there in Glasgow with several thousand people singing Bandera Rossa in Italian. It showed what this city felt made of. And I'm going to be fairly brief because, as you know, we've got the hustings on at 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go across and get ready for that. So this is, I think I'm right in saying, the 35th or something like that event we've done in this leadership campaign. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty more of them, because we're going to every part of the country and getting quite amazing attendances at many of them. For example, right in the southwest in Cornwall, where there are no Labour MPs, but I'm pleased to say there are now 4,000 members of the Labour Party. 1,000 people turned up on a Saturday afternoon for an open-air rally, and we ended with the singing of Trelawney. And then we Rock in Derbyshire, not a very big place, originally Dark Satanic Mills, now looks more like the cover of a chocolate box, and in a beautiful park on a Tuesday afternoon, 500 people came to a rally to talk about the alternative way of doing things. It's that excitement and that support that is so incredible. And when I came today for this meeting and the hustings tonight, and tomorrow we're going to be in Edinburgh launching our culture policy, and then tomorrow evening we've got a rally in Dundee. We started off by going down to Govan to see the church there, where I'll be giving the Jimmy Reid Memorial Lecture in October, in memory of him, of course, but in memory of that great tradition of Scottish Labour, that great tradition of campaigning for social justice, campaigning for the redistribution of wealth and power within our society. Because fundamentally, at one level, this is an election for the leader of the party, of course, but it's also about the direction in which we want to go as a party. A year ago, we lost the general election. A year ago, in Parliament, Labour MPs were told to abstain on a welfare reform bill that was taking £12 billion out of the pockets of the poorest all over the United Kingdom. Abstaining on the taking of £12 billion away from the poorest. Surely there is not a choice there for Labour. Surely our whole point of our existence is about decency, about justice, about a society that cares and includes all. We are no longer in that place. And we had an economic strategy which had, yes, many good things in it. It was, however, lacking in certain points. The crucial area it was lacking was that we had spent too long allowing the Tories to blame the allegedly high level of spending in the public sector for the banking crisis of 2008, it was not caused by nurses, by doctors, by street cleaners. It was not caused by pensioners. It was not caused by the homeless looking for a refuge for the night. It was caused by an unregulated, out-of-control banking system that tried the political choice made by the Tories and the Lib Dem partners in the coalition was of imposing austerity on the people of this country, the people of the whole of the United Kingdom. And that austerity has played out with greater levels of inequality within our society, with greater levels of deregulation, greater levels of injustice, and many young people denied the hope, the opportunities that they should have and should deserve. And so when John McDonnell took over as Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, the first thing he did was to set out an economic strategy, and he set it out to the Labour Party conference. Austerity is a political choice, not an economic necessity. And instead set out an economic policy and a programme which is about investment in a manufacturing economy, is about investment in infrastructure, is about investment in good education, good healthcare and good childcare all across the country. A National Investment Bank of £500 billion, of which at least 23 billion would come to Scotland and be invested in the infrastructure of Scotland. So at the very time when the figures that have come out now show a deficit in Scotland of £15 billion, what we need surely is an expanding, investment-led UK economy that will grow the manufacturing sector, that will build those sustainable industries and jobs, that will develop those green energy jobs, and will stop apologising for the housing crisis, but instead invest in decent housing, for which there is, of course, the virtuous circle of investment which creates jobs in the building industry, jobs in the supply chain, and at the end of it, of course, gives everyone a decent place to live. Innovation, best done often by public sector and public services, can achieve a great deal. 3 weeks ago, I was in Swansea where we were doing a campaigning rally, and I took time out before it to go and look at a new housing development that the City Council was doing there. You know what? They're building council houses by direct labour to passive house standards with lifetime tenancies on a social rent model. That is the kind of Labour Party, Labour Council, Labour government that we want. Giving everyone real security. And so, in changing the economic strategy of this party, we've also challenged the Tories in government. We did defeat them on the cut they were trying to make in working tax credits. We did defeat them when they tried to force academisation on all schools in England. We have defeated them on quite a lot of things. We shamed them into withdrawing from the contract that they were eagerly trying to get to run the prison service in Saudi Arabia. Hello, human rights comes first. Human rights is universal. And so, the response has been very interesting. Many of the media have been very hostile to everything that our party has said and done. Indeed, independent academic analysis has shown that 84% of newspaper coverage of the Labour Party in the past year has been negative. Some of it has been neutral. Hardly any of it has been positive. But, interestingly, we've reached out to very large numbers of people through social media, and I'm constantly astonished at the following one gets on this. We did a speech I made in Parliament on the day in which the government announced its programme, the day of the Queen's speech. 2 million people watched it on Facebook. 2 million people were following what we were saying. And That's resulted in something else quite dramatic. The Labour Party membership is now well over 500,000 across the whole of the UK. That membership have joined for a reason. They joined because they want to be part of a political movement that is challenging the austerity ideal, but is also challenging what goes behind it. The neocon economics that were forced on so many in the 1970s and 80s, that dominated what the Conservatives under Margaret Thatcher did to the mining industry, the steel industry, the shipbuilding industry, all the big industries all over Britain. Challenged the idea that you roll back the state in order to create greater economic prosperity in the future. And then you look at what is now and look at what is then. You look at the levels of poverty in Britain that are getting worse. You look at the numbers of people that are street homeless because of the housing crisis all across the UK, and you realise things have to be done differently. I'm fed up with being told by very expert economists that you've just got to face it. The next generation is not going to have what you had. They're not going to have the university education. They're not going to get the college places. They're not going to get the pensions that your generation had. They're going to have to pay far more for housing than any other generation ever did. And they're going to have to make sure they take out their own insurance to take care of their health and their pension and everything else in the future. And then the next generation after that is going to be even worse off. Surely our politics has to change. Our politics has to say we're going to challenge that economic narrative. We're going to challenge that economic narrative that does so much to dispirit people. But when we win things, it's very important. I pay tribute to Unite the Union for taking up the case of Sport Direct, showing what is really going on about the warehouse in Glasgow, the reputation that is going on there. I pay tribute to them for that, because when you win one victory, you win an awful lot of other victories. Those people working in very unsatisfactory conditions of pay and everything else for Deliveroo stood up, forced the company to back down, showed what can happen. And so we need surely an employment strategy that at the very least follows International Labour Organization standards, at the very least guarantees people rights of representation at work, that ends the scandal of 0 hours contracts, that guarantees the holiday entitlement and maternity leave that is so important. And so we put all these ideas forward. And over the year, we've also changed quite a bit on foreign policy. I spoke in Glasgow in 2003, not on February the 15th, on another occasion, against the Iraq War. I was shocked and I was appalled and I was angry that it was then a Labour government that was asking us to support that war in Iraq. Many of us said, this will not just be a disaster in Iraq, it'll be a disaster for a long time to come in lots of other places and lots of other ways. And therefore, I pledged in the leadership contest last year that if elected, we would deliver an apology for Iraq. And we did so. On foreign policy based on peace, on democracy, on justice, on human rights, so that we look to making our contribution to develop a more peaceful and just world. So we're setting out all these ideas in a series of policy documents in this. And I tell you what, people are interested, people are excited, and above all, people feel now they have the space to contribute, the space to contribute those ideas on how things could be done differently. So those that campaigned in Red Clydeside, those that took part in the Upper Clyde shipbuilders work-in, those that defended the miners during the miners' strike, all those that stood for decency and social justice and solidarity within our society, in many ways
are represented in the diversity and the unity of this campaign to make sure our party represents the real hopes, the real determination of a younger generation that wants something better, of an older generation that wants to live in a more peaceful, socialist and more sustainable world, and those people that want to live in a society that values everybody, that doesn't allow certain people and certain communities to be left behind, doesn't allow endemic rates of high unemployment, low investment, cuts and overburdening of the remaining public sector workers, wants something very different within our society. That is what's so exciting about it. So the fact there's a leadership contest wasn't of my doing, that was of the doing of others. But it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Because we can use this leadership campaign to develop our ideas, develop our organisation, develop our party, so that come the general election, whenever the Tories try to call it, we will fight them. We will fight them on human rights. We'll fight them on social justice. We'll fight them on investment. We'll fight them on the kind of society that we want to live in, where we will stand up against racism in any form, where we will stand up for real gender equality, we will stand up against the discrimination against those with disabilities and the cuts that they're suffering at the present time. And we will pursue a health service that cares for all, particularly those who are going through the crisis of mental health within our society. It's about the way we want to be treated ourselves and the way we want society to treat everybody else. It's the rejuvenating, the strengthening and the excitement of a different way of doing things. It's not just here, it's happening in America, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in many parts of the world. We want to live in a world of justice rather than one of inequality and the empowerment of global cooperation. I must go now to get ready for the hustings. We've got lots of campaigning to do, lots of campaigning to do together. And when you come together to do something and you achieve something together, you're not just strengthened by it, you're totally emboldened by it. And those that are very rich and very powerful are made a bit nervous by it. Thank you very much.